In the days since the death of Charlie Kirk, we have seen a variety of reactions from the public, many taking to social media to express those opinions. However, some losing their jobs because of their comments.
News 8's Katani Gooch spoke with experts about the current political climate and discourse. She joins us live in the studio. Katani.
Amber, Brian, when something nationally happens, it's not uncommon to see people flock to social media, using these platforms to share their thoughts. But speaking with experts in law and political science, what is distinct about this response from the public is the political climate where these thoughts are being shared. While there have been intense moments in our nation's history, these professors say it's to a point they've never seen before.
I have not seen this level, I guess, of kind of mass vitriol. I'm not surprised that that people have varying reactions, to his life and legacy.
Folks are not willing to work together. They're not willing to offer much in the way of respect to people that disagree with them.
Tracy Bream is a law professor at Cooley Law School, and John Clark is a political science professor at Western Michigan. While in different fields, both agree social media is a driving force in the ongoing intense division.
I think social media has changed a lot of the way in which we interact.
An unfiltered space that allows people to connect in unique ways, often creating communities of like-minded people.
Social media gives people a platform so that other people are aware of their statements and of their views. And I think people sometimes forget that that's the case.
But has it gotten out of control?
Once we start demonizing the other side, once we start telling people that there's no reason to respect anyone that disagrees with us, that's a problem.
People are taken to social media and other public platforms to express their feelings, and then people in power are, imposing consequences for that expression.
Like getting fired, a consequence that's been happening across the country.
The seeming retaliation aspect of it, right? People feeling repercussions because they're expressing their opinion.
Even right here in West Michigan, where an Office Depot employee was recently fired for refusing to print a poster of Kirk for a customer.
In the private sector, people really are at risk of losing their job any given day.
Bream saying these typically aren't situations where First Amendment rights come into play.
Unfortunately, there's not a lot of protections in the private sector. It would be a different scenario, for example, if you were arrested for posting comments about Charlie Kirk that the government didn't like.
And due to this national response, both educators say they're wary of the trajectory of future discourse.
I would love, instead of people being disciplined or discouraged, right, from expressing their opinion, that we could actually have a forum where we could talk about, right, Kirk's legacy and what he stood for, and kind of what that means for us as people.
There's not a lot out there right now that makes me feel like we're going to get over this moment.
Clark even alluding to impacts that go all the way up the political chain.
And if we don't incentivize our political leaders to work together through the kinds of rhetoric that we use just as citizens, why would we be surprised when they can't get things done? Why would we be surprised that both at the national level and at the state level, we're hurtling toward a government shutdown?
Both professors offering advice in these times. Bream asking people to think about what they post and the reason for posting it, and Clark urging people to inform themselves and to make an effort to understand others. Amber.